morning. I'll try not to shout. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. We're only 10 minutes in, and already you've had two great speakers talk to you about people and not technology. So you're probably going to anticipate what I'm going to be talking about next. So my name is Helen Rankin. If you can't see this presentation, it's already been uploaded to SlideShare, so you can actually follow along on your phone if you prefer. Why is everybody talking about digital transformation? That's the first question. It's been around for 50 years. I've been involved in digital for about 20 years now. I actually started here in the Middle East. I relaunched the Microsoft Middle East website, and we'll come on to that later. But the real question is, if we've had digital transformation for the past 50 years, why is suddenly everybody talking about it in 2017? And why should I care? And the way that I describe it is it's a bit like Cinderella. So everybody's looking for her. Nobody really knows what she looks like. And I'm not really sure anyone's going to know what to do with her when they find her. So let's answer the question, what is digital transformation? Transformation is obviously change, therefore it's a process. And the way that I describe it is the effect of adapting your business to thrive in a digital economy. Now, we've already had Rashika tell us that it's very difficult to define, and if you Google it, you'll really struggle to find a clear definition for it. The reason why I discuss it as an adaptation is because you're moving and constantly moving. A digital economy is not about technology. It's about how we use technology and how that's changing our social environment. So if you think about Netflix, for example, there used to be a time where you would write a TV series, it would have to be 26 episodes, and you would have to pace the storyline. Unfortunately now, we decide when we want to watch it, and your customers are doing the same thing. They're telling you what they want from you. They're telling you the products that you should be creating and the services that you should be delivering. In the example of Netflix, what's happened is they've had to write a TV series in one go and release it in one go. So if you think about House of Cards. Also, they're applying a higher budget than ever before, so they're using cinematic budgets. So what is this? Why are you telling me this? Why is this digital transformation? Well, what's happened is that because we've changed the way that we consume or we watch TV and videos and films, the script writers have had to change the way that they work. And everything that they've learned about how to write a script has changed. So you've got scriptwriter A, been very successful in the business for 20 years, suddenly is losing out to Becky, who's never written a screenplay in her life. She's probably Googled how to write a screenplay. And it's not because she's used any new technology. It's because she's writing the scripts in the formats that people today want to view that. And that's a really direct example of how the way that people are using digital services, digital products, is affecting a business without actually forcing you to change your technology. This is quite long-winded, but one of the things that we talk about is jargon-free transformation. So why is it most relevant to my business now? After all this time, why is everybody talking about it now? And it's because we're hyper-connected, and it's because it's a megatrend. So in terms of jargon-free, it's basically a lot of people doing a lot of stuff online a lot of the time, and it's become habitual. And that's changing at a more rapid rate, the more comfortable we become with it, and the more easily that we find it to adopt. The megatrend means that we're more connected, and it's forcing us to change more rapidly, and I'm going to come to this in the next part of the presentation. If you think about the demonstrations that happened recently, the anti-Trump rallies, you can see how quickly it was and how easy it was for people of like minds to come together and to mobilize. Now imagine that, but it's about your business, it's about your products, it's about your services. Everybody's talking about what you're doing, and more importantly, they're talking about what you should be doing. You're all SME leaders. You're all very influential people. You have a direct impact into where your business is going. The purpose of digital transformation is not to sell you something. It's so that you can continue to do the services that you provide now, to keep your customers happy, and to make sure that your business continues to survive and thrive. Because what's happening now is if you look at Airbnb, if you look at Uber, they've come in because they had a great idea and how to service people in the way that they wanted. Doesn't mean that they know anything about taxis or transport or customer service or hotel accommodation or hospitality. No, that's what you do. That's what you do very well. So digital transformation isn't about telling you that you're doing something wrong. It's about showing you ways in which that you can be open to the idea of continuing to keep your customers happy in the way that they want to receive your products and services. The way that you do that is you commit to the unknown. And this is the whole point of digital transformation. It's in a constant state of flux. It's in a constant state of change. Now, if you think about a process, how long does it take to change a process? Well, it's probably going to take longer than it is if you've got a group of people, a team of people that love your product, know your customers, have seen what's happening. You've got frontline staff. They can tell you immediately where the change needs to happen. And when you get groups of people together, you can change more quickly, and you can also experiment. So let's talk about being comfortable with risk, because this is not normally the way that we're built. We're not all dot-coms. We're not all entrepreneurs. We don't all have a swing in our office and a slide. Most of us have management systems, we have hierarchy, and we have ways of getting business done. And we've always done it this way. And now suddenly I'm coming along and telling you, forget all that, be more relaxed, be more comfortable with risk, and you'll be able to adapt to change more quickly. So I'm going to move away from technology, I'm going to move away from business, and I'm going to talk about rock climbing. This is called the Nose. It's in Yosemite National Park in the US. And a long time ago, not that long really, in the 60s and 70s, this was a haven for climbers. This route here that you see now, at the time, the most competent climbers thought it was impossible. In fact, they didn't even think it impossible. They never even thought about it. They just completely discounted it. It's 3,000 feet. It's almost as high as the Burj Khalifa. So this impossible climb was always just completely ignored as something wasn't even worth considering. And then one day, it was climbed. And I'd really like you to just take a moment to think about how it went from being impossible to being possible, and why. Now, most of you will be thinking probably technology, that's really a good one, or equipment in the case of climbers. Maybe it was just some people decided they want to do it. Maybe it was just about conditions. Well, it's a rock face, so it's obviously an optional condition. It's not as though it's a business environment. Well, the first thing was the attitude. Now, when it was first climbed, it took 18 months, and it actually took 47 days. And they had a series of rigs and pulleys, very, very complicated engineering. And they would go up, climb a little bit further, come back down. They even had roast turkey up there one day. So that took 18 months. And the reason why the climb was made in the first place was because of rivalry. So there were two key climbers at the time, Warren Harding and Royal Robbins, and they had different approaches. One was very laissez-faire, very cavalier, and he just was there to enjoy the climb. And Royal Robbins was more about the technical. He said there was a beauty to it, and you had to do it in a specific way. So you had two very distinct mindsets, very different, very polarized, doing the same thing. And this caused friction. And Royal Robbins made a very successful climb, and this ticked off Warren Harding. And the only option that he had was to find the most impossible climb and make it. And it was the Nose, and he did it. Now, this obviously sparked something in his rival, who then went out and climbed it in 7 days. So we've gone from 18 months to 7 days in just a couple of years. So that's the other thing, is that rivalry, healthy competition, is good for innovation. It's good for driving business forward. It's good for driving you forward. And it always keeps you on your toes. For me, this is the most interesting part, though. And when you look at the years, this might not be clear at the back. So in the beginning, we've got a couple of years here between Warren and Royal. You've just got 2 years. And they climbed it quite differently. Warren liked to have lots of equipment. He liked to bolt into the wall, whereas Royal liked free climbing, which is where you just climb up with just a rope for safety. So they had 2 different styles as well. And you can see there's only 2 years different there. But what happened next? Well, we went from 18 months to climbing it in 2 hours. And can you imagine somebody climbing up the Burj Khalifa in 2 hours? How is that possible? Take a look at the years. You've got 1970s, you've got the 1990s, and then you've got 2012. This is not technology. This is a generation change. This is a mindset. And Yusuf's already mentioned that today. It's about a mindset. What you've got here is the next generation came along. And they looked at what the generation before had done. And they went, yeah. And we can build on that. It was never about proving the previous generation wrong. It was about taking what they'd started and making it better and building on it. So we went from different types of climbing. We then had a free climb that was done in one day. Then Lynn Hill was actually the first person to climb it in under a day. And she did that with no ropes. So I'm not suggesting that that's how far you need to take your business in terms of how comfortable you are with risk. And then Alex Honnold actually just decided to run up it. And he does this, he's been up it quite a few times now, and you see pictures. It's just a guy, casual shorts and a shirt, and it's almost as if he's going to the shop for a pint of milk and a loaf of bread. So the generation gap is a really important part of why we're talking about digital transformation now. Now, normally what would happen is you'd start a business, and then maybe you'd hand it off to the next generation 15 years later, who would then evolve to whatever the environment needed at that time. But as I mentioned in the beginning, we're more connected than ever before. And what happens is when you get people together that are all thinking the same things, you have conversation, you have friction, and that forces change to happen at a more rapid rate. So the change that you're seeing now, instead of it happening from generation to generation, is actually only a couple of years apart. Now we talk about millennials, we talk about silver surfers, we have all these very unpleasant names for different groups of people. But when we talk about millennials, it's not just a generation that was born, it's actually a mindset of how you use technology as well. So now change isn't limited to just layers on tops of layers. We actually change and evolve as well. And that's forcing this rapid change. And that's why everybody is talking about digital transformation this year. That's why it's become so pressing. So let's talk about technology. You can see that as the time to climb the mountain became less, the equipment they used also became less. So again, this isn't about technology. This is about attitude. It's about figuring out what you want and where you're going. So we've climbed the mountain. Now what? What's the next generation going to do? How can you go any faster than 2 hours? Imagine climbing the Burj Khalifa in 2 hours. So what did they do next? What did the next generation do? They decided to jump off it. So apparently climbing a mountain isn't enough now. You've got to base jump off the top of it. And this is also relevant to your business. This is a collaboration. Where can your business go? How can you move this forward? Are there collaborations outside of your industry that you're not considering that would actually move your business forward? And that's what digital transformation is all about. It's about growth. It's about being able to continue to compete. It's about thriving. It's not just surviving. It's not playing catch up. It's how do you continue to lead in the market the way that you always have done. I mentioned in the beginning that I got involved in digital and IT about 20 years ago. I was working here at Microsoft, and at the time there were two of us, just to put things into context. So my job was to stay at home, stay in the office, and actually transform the website. And his job was to go out telling people what the internet was. Not what it could do for you, but what it was. And he had the best title in the world. He was Internet Evangelist. That's when we had really exciting names for our jobs back then. The important thing is that we were told to just move TechNet, just move the developer database online. My development team was in Cairo, my talent team was in Seattle, and we were all interconnected. And we didn't think anything of it. We just thought everybody did business this way. You know, we thought we were being quite radical in that most people just wanted us to upload information, but we actually wanted to do much more, and it would eventually be called Web 2.0. What's interesting here is that I got the job because I was the least qualified person in the room. The mandate came down from HQ, we have to transform the website. Nobody wanted it, so what happens? It goes to the least qualified person in the room, and I was 19, 20. But actually what happened was it went to the most relevant person in the room because I didn't think it was anything different. And this is the most important thing. So you have a generation of millennials, you have a generation of interns, and what happens with an intern? Well, the first thing you do is you tell them how you've always done it. You tell them what you would do. But how interesting would it be if when you invite new people, when you invite young people into your organization, you ask them, what would you do? And I think this is a really important step. Because after millennials, you're going to get the Mars generation. Now, I know millennials get a really hard time, but actually, they graduated at the time of the economic crisis. They're more educated than any other generation. They are getting paid about 36% less than any other generation. So they're more educated, but they're getting paid more. They're more in debt because they took out all the education loans. They can't afford to buy houses, which is okay because they prefer to buy experiences and share things. And these people are going to be your managers in your workforce. So when the millennials become the managers, what's going to happen to the worker bees? Well, they're going to be the Mars generation. Now, this is the first generation of individuals who were born not after the internet, but after Google. This generation is being taught code from the age of 4 in their classrooms in the way that we were taught maths and the alphabet. This generation doesn't understand impossible. They're born at a time when we're sending people to Mars. So the millennials, they understand what hard times look like, and they've pulled themselves out of it. Here, you have a generation that are excited, they're young, and they are so immersed in technology. Imagine taking that mindset and giving them AI. Imagine giving them blockchain. Imagine giving them all this new technology and going, what would you do with it? That's where you should be going with organizations. So this is a framework for digital transformation. By now, hopefully you've realized that digital transformation isn't about technology. Yes, you might apply technology, and we've got some great speakers that are going to talk to you about their technological solutions, and that's fantastic. But what you need to sort out first is your attitude. You are leaders, and in a recent survey, most people have said that they want a digitally competent, digital savvy leader that's leading their organization. So let's look at this framework for digital transformation. I've made it really, really simple. So by now you should realize that digital transformation is not technology-led. It's actually led by an attitude first, and that attitude comes from you. It has to come from the leadership. You have to lead this. And the way that you do that is with a clear digital strategy and a timely roadmap. Now a lot of people use waterfall project management. We use Scrum. And on Scrum, you set your projects that are no longer than 1 month. So if you're doing a 5-year business plan, that's really not going to work for digital transformation. You need to set yourself goals for the next 3 months, the next 9 months. So you have to have this short-term and long-term thinking at the same time. And when we talk about digital strategy, it's not about what technology you're going to introduce. It's about what's going around. How are your customers using technology? Is there an opportunity for you to step in there and do things either differently or new or in a way that they want? The second thing then is this commitment to risk. So digital transformation is not a magic wand. You have to become comfortable with risk. You have to learn to adapt. You have to be able to respond quickly. And that comes from an organizational culture. And again, that's something that you will directly influence because they're looking to you for support. Now, imagine that we've just asked your entire organization to change the way that they think. It's not going to be particularly comfortable. In fact, there's a behavioral psychologist that teaches 3 tiny habits. And I'll ask each of you to do this. I'm not even going to ask you to do 3 tiny habits. Over the next 7 days, I would like each and every one of you in this room to do 1 tiny habit, something that you haven't done before. Maybe when you switch the shower on, you do 3 press-ups. Maybe when you brush your teeth, you look in the mirror and go, hey, this is going to be the best day of your life. It has to be tiny, a tiny habit. If you can keep that up for 7 days, great. Go ahead and ask your staff to change. But if you can't keep it up for 7 days, and remember, I've only asked you to change 1 small part of your day, the point here is don't ask anything of your staff that you can't do yourself. What they need from you is support while you create this new environment for them, because they're going to feel uncomfortable. They're going to be outside of their comfort zone. And you need to lead this change. You need to reassure them that everything's going to be okay, and they just keep going. And that gives them the freedom to innovate. And it's all about personal ownership. This isn't about companies telling you what to do. This is about individuals being given the opportunity to really shine and take responsibility for themselves. And the third thing is digital transformation does not happen in isolation. It's not a solitary event. You need cross-pollination and you need integration. Instead of employing one technology across all departments, look at the best technology for that particular service or that particular department and get the people to work together and collaborate. Technology doesn't create collaboration. People using the technology does. So this is a really straightforward framework that will allow you to move your business forward. But as I said, it starts with you and it starts with leadership. Digital transformation is therefore a process, not a tool. And technology is a tool, not a strategy. That's the most important difference that I need you to focus on. Therefore, the strategy becomes investing in people. There are a number of different personality tests. We use Hogan assessments. And what it does is allows individuals within your organizations to understand their personality. And it talks about getting along, getting ahead, and finding meaning. So how do I work? Which environments do I thrive in? Who do I work best with? And those collaborations. And it's all about understanding about who you are as an individual. Because once you understand who you are, you can then create leadership. You can then create strong teams. And it's these strong teams that create your strong organization that allows you to withstand absolutely anything that comes your way. Because remember, you don't know what's coming. There are things that could happen in your industry and happen quickly that you couldn't have predicted. So having people ready to respond is the best way forward. We have what's called the 10% rule, and I really recommend that you experiment with this figure. It rarely goes below 10%. For some companies that we work with, it can be up to 40 or 50%, but 10% is a good starting point. I'd like you to go back and I'd like you to look at your accounts and look at how much you've spent on IT, technology, digital, maybe implementing new management practices, perhaps it's a new process. Whatever that figure is, take 10% of that budget and allocate it to investing in your people. And you will see the improvements in your organization almost immediately. It's a bit like putting me in a Formula One car. Lewis Hamilton is always going to get a different result than I am. So if you're investing in technology, at least invest in the people that are going to be using that technology and give them a chance to use it to the best of their ability. This is the last slide of the presentation before I take a few questions. You're going to get a lot of information today. We have a jam-packed schedule. You've got a lot of speakers talking about talent, talking about technology, talking about all different types of things. And as leaders, what are you going to do with that information? So this is a really useful tool. This works on large-scale and small-scale projects. I'd like you to take a piece of paper and just create 4 columns. And at the top of each column, write these titles. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. Now, the first thing you need to do is think about where you're going. Why did you come here today? Why did you want to learn about digital transformation? Is there something happening in your business? Are you noticing new competition? Are you noticing customers are dropping off? Are you wanting to break into new markets? Maybe you're wanting to break into global markets. Whatever it is, start at the end. Figure out where you're going and set yourself a 3, 6, or 9-month plan. Then go back to the beginning. You should be able to finish today, start where you are. So what do you already have? Maybe you already have 1 location, but you want 2. Maybe you've already got talented staff, but you need more. So write what you already have. Then, over the next few hours, you're going to start to hear talkers from all sorts of backgrounds. And they're going to prompt you to think and see that actually you have a lot more going for you than you realized. Maybe you've already got a particular type of technology that allows you to do something. Maybe you've already got somebody in your organization that with a bit of encouragement could actually move into a new area. So over the rest of the day, start to fill in column 2 and 3. Use what you have and do what you can. By the end of the day, you'll have a very clear action plan, your roadmap for the next 3 months. And it gives you a really easy way to actually bring all the information that you're going to receive today and put it into one spot for you to actually use. That's the end of my slides. Does anybody have any questions about digital transformation or how to grow your business or how to move forward?